welcome to the SBH Teaching Kitchen's online cooking series. My name is Emily, and in today's lesson we will be making Pollo Guisado. Now, this is one of those dishes where everyone has their own little twists, their own way of making it. But one thing that commonly happens is that this dish will be very high in saturated fat and sodium. So for this lesson, I'm going to show you some tips on lowering the saturated fat and sodium in this dish, because those are both nutrients that we want to try to limit in our diet. So first we're going to start with our chicken. Now we have 2.5 pounds of chicken here, and we have a mixture of thighs and drumsticks. And you can see the skin has been removed. So the chicken skin is going to be a pretty significant source of saturated fat. So by removing the skin, that's one really easy way to reduce how much saturated fat is going to be in your final dish. Another thing you can do is trim away any visible fat that's on the outside of that chicken, because that solid fat is also going to be saturated fat. So that's going to be any of those white pieces that are usually along the edges, mostly on the thighs. Usually that's something that you can just peel off with your fingertips, or you can cut it away with a knife. And so by removing that extra fat too, again, we're going to limit how much saturated fat is in our stew. As far as sodium goes, a lot of the ingredients that we add usually have a lot of sodium in them, so when we're adding ingredient after ingredient that's high in sodium, we end up with a dish that's going to be pretty salty. So our first two ingredients, our seasonings, our adobo and our sazon, can be very high in sodium if we're buying the store-bought seasoning blends. A way to get around that is by making your own salt-free seasonings at home, because that's going to put you in control of how much sodium you're adding to your dish. We do have recipes for both of those seasonings, and that is going to be what we use here today. Other ingredients that can be pretty high in sodium are going to be our chicken stock or our chicken bouillon, our tomato sauce, and our olives. So for our chicken stock, you can usually, if you're buying it, you can look for things that say unsalted or no salt added on them. You can also make your own chicken stock and just not add salt to it. Or if you're looking for chicken bouillon, you can find a sodium-free chicken bouillon as well. So look for things that say unsalted, no salt added, or even things that say low sodium can be a better option, because they're going to have much less sodium than the original. As far as our tomato sauce and our olives go, we're still going to use those, but we're going to keep in mind that those two things are going to have a decent amount of sodium in them, so we're going to be mindful of how much extra salt we're going to add. So for this whole dish, we're only going to add a half teaspoon of salt, because so many other things that we're adding are going to be very flavorful. They're going to add their own sodium, so just that half teaspoon is enough to make a really flavorful dish. So we can go ahead and get started. Start by seasoning 2.5 pounds of chicken legs and thighs with 2 teaspoons of salt-free adobo seasoning and a half teaspoon of salt. Once your chicken is evenly coated in the seasoning, preheat a pot over medium-high heat. Once your pot is hot, add 2 tablespoons of oil. Once the oil is hot, you can add the chicken in an even layer in the pot. You want to make sure that the chicken is in an even layer in the pot and not overlapping too much, because that's going to help it to brown more evenly. Once the chicken is browned on one side, you can go ahead and flip over all of the pieces and brown it on the other side. Once your chicken is evenly browned on both sides, you can remove it from the pot and set aside. Next, you're going to add a half cup of sofrito to your pot. Give that a stir, and as you're stirring, use your spoon to scrape the bottom of your pot to release all of the brown bits that are left over from the chicken. Keep stirring the sofrito as it cooks, and cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes. At the end of cooking your sofrito, you can add your sazon and stir to combine. Next, you're going to add 8 ounces or 1 small can of tomato sauce, a half cup of olives, about 5 sprigs of cilantro, and about 2 cups of chicken stock. Here I'm using chicken bouillon, so I'm using 1 packet or about 1 teaspoon of a salt-free chicken bouillon, and then I'll add 2 cups of water. Once everything is in your pot, stir to combine and then bring to a boil. Add the chicken and 2 cups of sliced carrots. This is about 2 large carrots worth. You want to make sure that everything is just barely covered with liquid, so if you need more, you could always add more chicken stock or water. Cover this and cook on medium-high heat for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you can add your potatoes. We're going to use 1 large potato, which should give you 1 to 2 cups of diced potatoes. Then you're going to allow this to simmer for 20 to 25 minutes until everything is fully cooked and the sauce is as thick as you would like it to be. If your sauce gets thick too quickly, you can finish cooking everything with the lid on. After 25 minutes, our stew is looking really good. We can see that the potatoes and carrots are fully cooked, and we can also see that the chicken is fully cooked and falling off of the bone. You can serve this as is, or you can serve it over brown rice and garnish it with chopped cilantro. Your serving size is going to be 2 drumsticks or 1 thigh with about 1 cup of sauce. Thank you for joining us for the SBH Teaching Kitchen's online cooking series. This has been our recipe for Pollo Guisado, or chicken stew, and we'll see you again for the next one.